Well, hello, it's Larry Steinhouse, and this is the Larry Steinhouse Show. You know, we're like having this remote thing going on here, and I got a really cool guest. I got to tell you about this guy. This is just so cool. His name is Dan Gordon, and I got to tell you, wave to everybody, Dan. Here you go. So I got to tell you something. This is really cool about what happened with Dan. So you guys remember the coach-a-thon we did a couple of months ago already. Wow, it's been terrible. It's been that long. So we did this coach-a-thon, and one of the guys we had was Trevor Evans. And it turns out, and Trevor Evans on fire. By the way, if you haven't seen that, you need to see it. My apologies, I could see the audio's out of sync, but it's probably out of sync because we're using an iPhone to transmit. So deal with it. I know you can hear it. Just deal with it. It is what it is. But so Trevor Evans, really cool guy. If you haven't seen that interview, you need to see that interview because it's really cool. So Dan reaches out and says, "Hey, I know Trevor. Can you interview me too?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure. Fly down to Philadelphia and interview." He goes, "Oh man, I'm in California." I'm like, "All right, you know what? I'll tell you what. I happen to be going to California, which is where I am right now, right, guys? So I'm here in California, and Dan reached out and I said, "Oh, I don't care. We'll just set it up in the hotel I'm staying in, and that's where we are right now. We're in the hotel I'm staying in. So you got to say hello, Dan. Say hello."
Hey. How you doing? Hey, you know what? I really want to get this shared. It's not showing up.
Oh, that's okay. It happens. It is what it is. So, so if it's not sharing, that's a bad thing. You know what? Try to refresh it. Let's see if it refreshes, because that may be it. It may have to be refreshed. We don't even, maybe it's not even transmitting. Who knows? That could be. Oh, there we go. There you go. There you go. Hit that and hit share. He's going to share for a minute. So just give us 1 minute while he shares it with all his friends, because it's just like such cool to to be on the Larry Steinhouse Show, you have to share it with your friends, because if you don't share it with your friends, then what's the point, right? It is what it is. So this is just so exciting. Again, I came out here. I'm actually hanging out with the cash flow chick. I'll tell you about that another time. I'm hanging out with the cash flow chick, and Dan's here, and here he is, and I think he shared. So tell us about yourself, man. Tell us what you do and why you do it and all that good stuff.
Well, whenever someone asks me what I do for a living, I always say I'm a professional troublemaker.
Troublemaker. I like it.
And the reason that I say that, and by the way, I'm going to just launch right in to a couple tips about how to do some effective networking. Because one of the things that I coach people on is how to be more effective when they go out and do some business networking. And so, whenever someone says, "What do you do for a living?" what do you think they're really saying, Larry?
Well, I know what they're saying. They're saying, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" So they can find out. Well, when I ask them that, I want to tell them what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the key, right?
It is. And that when someone says, "What do you do for a living?" what they're really saying is, I hope the answer is something that's going to be interesting to me. Because as human beings, we want to be entertained. We always want to be entertained, right? Like, we live in this entertaining world, we have this entertaining president, like, everything is
That's why I wear jackets like this,
man. He has an entertaining jacket, right? Had I known it was cool jacket day, I would have not worn this thing, but anyway. So, when I'm at a networking event and someone says, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a professional troublemaker." And that answers the thing that they really want, because what they want is something interesting. So now they're thinking, well, what does that mean? And then what I do is I turn the question around. I say, "Tell me about you." But I don't say, "What do you do for a living?" I say, "What do you love about what you do?" And I get them talking, and I get them sharing, and I get them open. So I get to learn about them, see if they'd be a good potential business connection. And I also have them interested in me now. And so when I do talk more about what I do, there's already a connection. So
all right, so wait. So you say that you're going to talk to these people, and you're going to find out what interests them and what interests you about them. Is that right?
Right, yeah.
So what happens if they are boring? What if they say, "Hi, I'm an accountant, and I work in a bank, and I all day long I just do numbers"?
Well, then I'm going to say, "What do you love about what you do?"
I hate my job.
Great. And then I'm going to start coaching them. And then by the end of that conversation, they're going to hire me so I can move them into their lifelong passion. And that's part of what I want to talk about this evening.
Okay, so you say you're going to bring them into their lifelong passion, right? So I love this because, like, I'm all about Napoleon Hill. I mean, Greg Reed is one of my mentors. I mean, I'm like all over the Napoleon Hill stuff. I hang out with the people from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Cool. So when you say passion, I'm really into it. So tell me about, how does someone find their passion?
Okay. if what you're doing doesn't turn you on, then there is something that then there is a disconnect. So I'm going to talk about something that happened on the drive over, and it's all going to work together and connect. Okay, so whenever I go to like a fast food place or a drive-through, and someone takes my order, and they say, "Will there be anything else?" What I always say is, "I'm fine. Would you like something?" And they always kind of laugh it off, and they never take me up on it. I've been doing this for 10 years, and not one person has ever said, "Yeah, I would like something." Right? So I went to the Starbucks drive-through, and I said it, ordered a latte. Would you like anything else? Not unless you want something. And somebody in there said, "Yeah, I'd like a cookie." I'm like, "Great!" Like this is the first time in 10 years. Like, great, put the cookie on there. So I pull up, and she says there'll be $3.90, and I know that the cookie isn't on there. So I said, "What happened to the cookie?" I said to the guy, "Do you still want it?" And he said, "That's okay." Right?
So wait a minute, let me get this straight.
No.
You bought the guy behind the counter the cookie.
I was trying to.
Right.
Okay, so
Okay.
Like he said he wanted one, but he just thought I was kidding. But
Okay.
I was ready to buy him.
Of course, sure.
Now, when he said that's okay, what he really meant was I'm afraid to ask for the cookie. Now, why do you think he was afraid to ask for the cookie? And this is key.
Well, my answer is I think he was afraid he's going to get fired.
Well, but there probably isn't a directive in Starbucks in the employee handbook somewhere that says a customer cannot buy you a cookie.
Well, we're not talking about a bar here. I bought bartenders drinks before.
Right.
This is a little bit different, but I get the idea, okay. and I'm teasing you a little bit too. I know I'm being tough on you, but everybody's I'm always tough on people. Hey, Bill, I just wanted to say hi. Thanks for watching. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue on. I cut you off.
Okay, so that's cool. There is a reason that he didn't feel comfortable getting the cookie, and that's because it was something different. Right? So something was happening that was outside the realm of the norm, and this is key in everything that people struggle with. So anytime something happens that's different, we get afraid. And the reason has to do with how we are wired. So Larry, would you go back with me about 2 million years, right?
Okay.
Here we are cavemen. We're out hunting, and
Right.
we hear something,
Sure.
something in the bushes, right?
You know what that was, right? That was the tailor making my jacket.
Right. So
Sorry.
you're a riot, man. I'm gonna stop talking and just listen to you. This guy's great. But hold on a second. Before I finish my dumb little story, I am so impressed, Larry, of this thing that you have created. A lot of people have these little internet shows, but you've had on amazing guests. You've had really cool shows. You're a top-notch interviewer. Every one of your shows is totally interesting. Whereas, I watch a lot of different things on the internet. Mostly they're terrifically boring. People don't know how to interview. They don't know how to take a really dull guest and make them interesting, and you do.
I'm so struggling with you too. No, I'm only teasing. I'm teasing. No, actually, you're a great guest. I love it. I love the stuff you're talking about.
Okay.
So, well, back in $2 million years ago,
right?
we could hear the guy making my suit.
Right.
Oh no, okay. Sure.
So here's a little rustle in the bush, right? Now, he's going to think one of two things, right? That's a saber-toothed tiger. I got to run, or it's a little bunny rabbit, right? So the caveman who thinks it's a saber-toothed tiger runs, he survives. The caveman who thinks it's a little bunny rabbit, he sits there and it probably is a saber-toothed tiger, and it kills him, right? So the one who survived goes back to his cave woman, has some cave babies, teaches them to be paranoid and afraid of things that they don't know. Now, flash forward, we are still operating under that same belief system. We're still using that same
isn't that the fight or flight belief system that we always talk about?
Well, yes, but what it's designed to do is that anything that's different, we are afraid of, right? So here I am at Starbucks trying to buy this guy a cookie, which I know that he wants, but he's afraid because something different is happening. And that is the crux of where all people struggle, right? Anytime someone has this brilliant idea and thinks, wow, I should really step into this. Like I can step into my power, into my greatness, and create something new.
Mm-hmm.
The next thought is like, nah, like, okay, that's not gonna work. Like our mind gets flooded with these pictures and these stories of how it's gonna go horribly wrong.
So how does one change that mindset? How do you say, listen, you know, I'm going to do something different for a change, and I'm going to make myself great? Now, I mean, look, you know, clearly I'm an action taker, so I can answer some of these questions. But as a coach, I'd love to hear your responses on how you do that.
All right, a few things. The first thing is to make friends with fear and uncertainty. So the big mistake that people have around fear is they try to do what with it, right? They try to conquer it. They try to beat it down. They try to overwhelm it. But fear is a vicious taskmaster. Like, we are designed to be afraid. Like, if we could beat fear, that would be so detrimental. Because like every time we get on the highway, our fear is what keeps us alive. You know, because like we have visions of running into other cars or flipping our car over or getting into accident. And so our fear guides us to keep us alive. So we can't beat fear. It is like the source code of our operating system. So rather than trying to beat it or overwhelm it or to feel bad or castigate ourselves when we feel afraid, we understand that fear is like a beacon. It's pointing to the thing that could be really helpful for us.
So when you say that, when you say it's pointing to the beacon that could be really helpful, you got to give me some kind of an example, because I'm finding it fascinating, just the concept of the idea of fear being the beacon that's pointing to us. It's just an amazing concept. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so the thing about this is that like going for like, and you see like 1,000 refrigerator magnets and memes say like go for the thing that you're afraid of. Right? And it's so easy to say that, but the thing is like when you're actually in the moment, you know, when you're staring at the thing that you're afraid of, everything inside of you says don't do it, and that's why, I say this a lot to my clients, is that a good risk and a bad idea feels the exact same.
So a good risk and a bad idea
feels the same.
A good risk,
yes,
and a bad idea feels the same.
Right.
Okay, so now how do you differentiate, or how do you decide, all right, maybe I should go forward or I should run?
Right. The thing about that is that you don't know if it's a good risk or a bad idea until you take action on it.
that makes it a little scary.
Right. So
it's so scary that I blanked out the picture 3 times trying to switch. You know, that's how scary it was, right? So tell me,
right.
wait, because
I can give you a perfect
all right, sure.
example. All right, so about 3 years ago, God no, it's like four years ago, I had a marketing company called the Big Time Group, and I decided that I was really going to go in full on it. Like I hired this really slam bang account manager, and I was bringing in new business and really putting a lot of stuff together. I was really building this thing. And what I did is I inadvertently hired a pathological liar.
You inadvertently hired a pathological liar.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Now,
okay.
If you've never worked with a pathological liar, at some point in your life, you've got to hire one of these guys. Because
they got to be. So they got to be great salespeople, though.
They're great salespeople. The problem is, Larry,
they promise too much. Right?
They don't do anything that they promise. Right. So I didn't know he was a pathological liar. He was saying things like he dated Fonzie's daughter, and he was in like gun battles with like drug dealers. Now, in all fairness, I live in Los Angeles, so all that's possible. But what happened is I brought him into my sales cycle, and he was closing right and left because he had no intention of following through. So what will happen with pathological liars is that when you get close to finding them out, they have like a meltdown and they just disappear. So that's what happened with him.
Yeah, so they get very defensive is
Yes.
what happens,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
He had a
and they come up
meltdown.
with all kind of ideas that, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't say that, or, oh, yeah,
So,
I've been there.
right,
I
so
know exactly what you mean, right?
Right. So it leaves you with no opportunity.
Yeah, you have to remember that I've been married 4 times. My wife, Linda, is wonderful. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. The other 3, Larry, the other 3?
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. All right.
Hey, listen, I've also learned to be politically correct.
Smart. We will have to talk about this. So what happened is that this little house of cards I was building came crashing down with this guy because the clients that we got in and things that we promised I couldn't do because the quotes that we had and the work that we said that we were going to do for the prices were just unreasonable. And so one by one, the clients left, and the bottom line is that I ended up $70,000 in debt.
That's all? That's nothing.
At the time, it was kind of rough. So here's my good risk, right? My good risk was to invest in my company, to hire really good people, right? But that good risk turned out to be a bad idea. But I didn't know it until I took action. However, Larry, at the depth of my depression of losing this business, I decided, look, I can either put this thing back together or I can go for what I really love. And
so what is it that you really love? Because that's an interesting question.
right, and that is transformational work.
Okay.
Speaking, coaching.
So do you speak often?
I do. I'm speaking right now.
What? Yeah, kind of. That's not exactly what I meant. But so are you a platform speaker or are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So you have products.
I have
excellent.
products. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about one of those right now.
That's awesome. Tell me all about it.
So well, I'll tell you this though, that good risk that turned into a bad idea when I decided, all right, I'm going to really see if I can do this thing. About 12 months later, I found myself on stage in Dallas, Texas, in front of 1,500 people, being paid $10,000 for an hour of my time.
Okay, so that's keynote speaking.
Yes.
But how did you? So all right. So I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I'm dying to stand in front of 1,500 people. You can tell I love speaking too,
Yes.
right? I just get into it. So part of my problem is, and maybe this becomes a coaching session right now. Part of my problem is, okay, what am I going to speak about in front of 1,500 people? Now, I'm probably a platform speaker because I sell my courses, my investor schooling courses. It's great stuff, and and I go and I teach it, and I love to teach it. But I would love to stand up and give an inspirational message to someone and make everyone in the audience cheer. Okay. How would I do that?
Well, and this is great. Like, what a great question, because I think a lot of people have that question. All right. So the first thing that you need to do is balance content and product.
Okay.
All right. There's a term I use with my clients, and I call it giving them one potato chip out of the bag. Right. If I have a bag of potato chips and I give you one chip, what do you want, Larry?
What do I want? I want the crunchiest, biggest potato chip in the bag.
And do you want just one?
Oh, of course not.
Right.
Absolutely not. Right.
So you give them one potato chip out of the bag. You give them just enough content to make it valuable, but for them to really want more. And the want more is the product. So it's an interesting kind of thing. So when you talk about, I want people clapping and cheering, you don't necessarily want a standing ovation. This is what I found. What you want is people to stand up and run to the back of the room and buy your product.
Okay, so that would be a platform speaker, right?
Yes,
of course,
right. Now,
right. And and of course, I'm doing it in small audiences. I mean, 200, 150, 200 people. I'm not doing, and again, it ends up selling the school that we have. But at the same time, I know I have some really great messages. And maybe it's confidence, maybe it's something else. It's funny, this is turning into a coaching session. I love it. Okay. But at the same time, maybe it's confidence, maybe it's something else. But again, how do I know that? So how do I get there? Tell me how I get there.
So now, I'm actually going to answer the question that you were actually asking. How do I know that what I have is valuable?
Yeah, sure. Right? Okay. Sure, absolutely,
and I get it, Larry. It was a little scary to ask that, right? Because we're right back to the caveman with a little in there,
sure.
Right? So what happens is, here's where your mind goes. Your mind is playing a little movie, and that movie is you on stage talking about these things that you love and grasshoppers.
Look, I already own the jacket.
right, yeah. What you also need is a slamming pair of shoes because you're up high.
Right, there you go, yeah. Okay, my sneakers won't work, I get it, okay.
So understand that you're already working against yourself because there's this vision that like, what if I get up there? And what if it's not interesting? What if people don't like it? And there's a lot of things you can do to practice. You can set up a meetup and have small groups, but ultimately what it takes getting up there, and it takes seeing if it's a good risk or a bad idea. And the beautiful thing is that when you stay open, when you decide that fear and uncertainty are your traveling companions on this amazing spiritual journey of life, when fear and uncertainty are your traveling companions, then you're in a constant state of learning. So that $70,000 I didn't lose, I invested. I invested in myself.
Oh, sure.
And I became a much better person. Like, I would be miserable if I had my marketing agency right now.
Yeah, so, I say it all the time, is, I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on so many different things that, that, of course, turn out to be great lessons. Mm-hmm. And again, Napoleon Hill, I forgot how he says it, but, when you're in adversity, it becomes a I forgot what it was called, but I forgot how he says it. But when you're down, when you're down, it makes you come up. I forgot. It's terrible, but I can't quote Napoleon Hill at 10 o'clock at night. And well, actually, it's not 10 o'clock at night here. It's 7 o'clock at night here. But I'm still at 10 o'clock because I'm still thinking I'm in Philadelphia. Anyway,
hold on.
So much fun.
I'm going to keep working with you later. Okay, so tell me one thing that you would like to share with an audience that would be valuable for them. Okay,
so it's always about mindset with me. Money mindset, and it's funny. There's a guy named Ray Smooth. I don't know if you've ever met this guy, but I'm Roy Smooth, not Ray Smooth. I'm sorry, Roy Smooth. Take a look on my website, on my Facebook, connect to him. We had a blast. We were coming up here. I was driving him to LA. He has a conference he's going to, and we were talking about. And I was talking about something I always wanted to talk about, which I'm a total expert on, which is marriage. Think about how expert I am, because I've done it 4 times, so I must be an expert, right?
Yeah.
All right, everybody laughed. That's okay. That was the idea. No, but there were some things I learned, and I actually ended up counseling some people, and I also counsel people on money all the time. So I found that there's some common problems in marriage that have to do with money, have to do with how you get along, etc. Anyway, so I actually came up with a title of a book. I'm not going to say it yet because I don't want anybody to steal it yet.
Okay, got it.
And I think I may write this book, which I actually believe this could be a launch pad for a keynote speech. So it may actually end up, we may actually talk about this again, which is kind of funny. So it's kind of odd that you brought this up, because this seems to be the recurring theme for the week. I was in a mastermind meeting. Actually, I'm a member of what's called the Mastermind Association. I'm one of the founding members. And we were talking about this there as well as one of the things I'd like to work on. So it's kind of interesting that you brought this up. And again, this was not planned. It just happened to be, well, it just happened to be, right, just this conversation just happened to be something that we had planned before, but not the content of the conversation. So I found it interesting that it's still coming up. And again, your goals are chasing you, you're not chasing your goals, right? So here it is. Here it is coming right to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that when you stop and turn around and like look at what you're really about, like you say, look at what goals are chasing you. I had a breakdown when I lost my business. It wasn't just the money, it was like all the time and the effort and the love. And like when I had that breakdown, and just like in the worst place in my life, I knew, even when like the tears were streaming, it wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning.
There you go.
Right?
Yep.
And even though it was painful, and I didn't know what was going to happen next, I became, I invested myself in the unknown. And the unknown is terrifying. Like the idea of going up on stage.
Sure. And
not knowing if it's going to hit.
See, it's funny, I'm not terrified of going up on stage. I'm terrified of never going up on stage. Isn't that odd? See,
say more about that.
What I mean by that is something that I always wanted to do, right? So I've always wanted to have a radio show. So I ended up creating the Larry Steinhouse Show. Radio is no longer radio, now it's Facebook Live, right? And I didn't want to wait to be hired, so I'm just going to do it. That's why I built a studio. That's why I have all this equipment that I brought with me. Something I always wanted to do. So I'm more terrified of not speaking in front of 1,500 people and dying than I am of speaking in front of 1,500 people. I'm super excited about it. I just want to make sure that it works, that the presentation is right, that everything about what I want to do is perfect and beautiful. Now, I realize it'll never be perfect, but beautiful is good enough, right? And then I actually do it, and I get to stand up and say I did it, and then go to the next step, and whatever it is that I do next. So I'm kind of the opposite of most people.
Well, I can tell you this, and this is great for a lot of people who want to get into speaking, because you see some big speakers and think, wow, they're in front of 300, 500 people, 10,000 people. Like, how do I get there? Well, when comedians are working on a tour, they don't get in front of a lot of people. They go to small comedy clubs on a Wednesday night at midnight, and they do open mics because they want to check and see how the audience reacts. So I mentioned this before, we're going to mention it again. Get on to Meetup. Like, whatever it is that you want to talk about, get on to Meetup, create a Meetup. And like, I've done this. I've had like 6 people. I mean, I've talked in front of 1,000 people. Like, there were just 6 people there. And I was talking to them as if it was a huge room, because I'm practicing and I'm looking at how they're responding.
Well, because I have the school, I'm in front of 25 to 50 people all the time anyway.
Oh yeah.
So I have that already. But really, I want to stand up on stage. I mean, I see it. I see the audience. I've seen the audience for years in my head that I'm looking out to see. So I do this. So I hate to do this though. We have about 3 minutes.
Okay.
So we have your website up. If you want, do you want to talk about your website, or just something else you want to talk about? Okay. So real quick, I just want to show you that I've got. I know you can't see it. But I have your website. It says the container.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about it real quick?
Cool. So this is exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, cool.
Because this is something I've always wanted to do. I used to fly around the country teaching personal development courses, and what I found is that people who get into personal development often are kind of at the end of their rope and they're not really that motivated. So I created a really slamming course, and instead of a weekend workshop, and by the way, weekend workshops really don't work. They don't work for transformation. They're fun, they're exciting, they're loud, but 72% of people after a weekend workshop forget everything within 2 days. So I created the container as a 10-week, 10-session, 10 consecutive week course. And each week, it's like chapters of a book. It is you moving through this story, the story of your life. And it is breaking through. Now, I'm not even going to say breaking through. It's investigating the things that you struggle with, and it is understanding them and getting on top of them. It's not just a little encounter group or 10-week we sit and talk. It is a very clear curriculum, and I urge you, go to whatisthecontainer.com and check it out, and check out what happens in each of the 10
Awesome. Weeks. And that link is below. If you can see it in the comments.
Yeah.
So any last words? We got 15 seconds. Any last words?
It is about living life unlimited. Watch the video on whatisthecontainer.com, and that'll tell you everything. Larry, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. It was awesome.
Amazing. I love talking to you, man.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you after.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to following you and finding out more about you. Wave goodbye to everybody.
Bye-bye.
And that's it, guys.